Hello, what's up everybody? Welcome to this World War Armies video. Before we start, I would like to mention this video is sponsored by Hype Masters, so thank you very much Hype Masters. And we're going to be talking today about the 1.0 update. This is the release patch. So finally the game is out. I'm very excited. I've been enjoying this game a lot. I've been playing a ton of this game. Let's talk about what has happened with 1.0 with the release update. Obviously the most important thing, you can now download this game on iOS. There will be a link in the description to the iOS store and to the Android store where you can download the game. That is obviously the most important update. You can now download the game on iOS devices. Alright, so let's talk about what is new in the 1.0 update. First of all, we now have the ability to change our name, finally. No longer will you be player string of numbers. Unfortunately, my name is not allowed. I don't know why, but I'm not allowed to be Blade. So I'm now 13 Laid, as I always was. Also, we have some new avatars here. Yeah, you got 6 avatars to choose from. We've also got the Battle Pass. So let's talk about the Battle Pass a little bit. So I'm a big fan of Battle Passes. I don't know if I probably haven't talked about this that much on my YouTube videos, but I think Battle Passes are a great way to monetize games. I think they're a really good way to incentivize people to play the game. You get rewards by playing. As you can see, I've already bought the premium battle pass. I really like this game, so it was a no-brainer for me. I was immediately going to buy it. Let's talk about what we've got from the battle pass. So we basically have standard battle pass. You've got a free track and a premium track. Obviously, the free track you can get just by playing the game. You don't have to put any money in at all. Premium track is bonus rewards if you get the premium battle pass. Let's talk about what you can get from the battle pass. Obviously we've got standard stuff, we've got cards and resources, but also there's cosmetics. So here you can see at level 2 there is the Thunderer tank customization for the Tiger tank, which I am currently equipping. Hang on a second, I'll show you guys. There is Germany. I've got my Thunderer Tiger tank, there he is. You can also get additional cosmetics. If you scroll across, you'll see there are random cosmetics. So you will get a random cosmetic when this crate comes out. This obviously means you have no idea what you're going to get till you hit the crate. And generally, other than that, it's pretty much standard battle pass. What you expect to see, you've got resource packs, resources, and cosmetics. If you scroll all the way across, you can see there's some additional rare cosmetics in the premium track over here. We've got a Sherman one coming up as well. Where it is, there is the Sherman and the Sherman, what am I trying to say here? Sherman cosmetic. An unusual twist though here, the battle pass at the end has a restart button, which if you reach the final level of battle pass, you can restart your battle pass and collect more rewards, which is usually games have like an infinite reward at the end, that if you continue getting battle pass points, you just keep re-getting the same infinite reward. Instead, they've decided to go with a restarting battle pass. Alright, so obviously your battle pass, we've got updated daily quests. Daily quests will now, instead of giving you coins, they will give you battle pass points to get you along your battle pass rewards. So most of your coins are now going to be coming from playing the game and from your battle pass rewards. You now also have season quests. These are quests that are available throughout the season. You unlock a new set of tasks each week. So you can see here, in 4 days, I'm going to unlock weekly quests 2. This is weekly quests 1. There's a lot of quests here. There's a lot to do. They're very long-term goals. As you can see, we've got like capture 60 resource crates, 50 general skills, destroy 100 structures. You've got like win 3 times with various units. As you can see, these are really long-term goals. These are the kind of things that's going to take you. You're going to be doing these throughout the whole season. So it's nice. It's still something to work towards after you finish your daily quest. Still got these season quests. Alright, and then of course the biggest change in version 1.0, we have an entirely new faction. We do have the USSR, which I think no one is surprised by. I think we all were expecting it to be USSR as the third faction. I'm just going to talk briefly about the units in USSR. So we're going to go along here. So we've got a new general. We've got, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Georgy Viktorov. Apologies if I got that wrong. So we've got 3 new abilities. We've got Scorched Earth Tactics, After 5 seconds, trigger a series of explosions at selected resource or strategic points. You can target any point in the game at the moment. I don't know if they're going to change that. But you can target neutral, enemy, ally, doesn't matter. You can target any of them. This does a reasonable amount of damage. It's not bad. It's for 10 cost, it's not horrible. It's not phenomenal, but you can definitely take out some light infantry. You can force people back off of points that you control they're trying to capture. Or if you're just having a fight on a point, you can use this for some bonus damage. But it's not super exciting. I'm not that hyped about it. This one here, Tenacious Assault, 30 cost, blocks killing hits against all your troops. This does not last super long, but it lasts long enough that you can get your units out of danger most of the time. So if your big tank is about to die, hit retreat, hit Tenacious Assault, it'll probably get out of danger. This is a pretty powerful ability. This is really strong. Because obviously any unit that you keep alive, you can repair back up, or infantry you can reinforce back at your HQ. So yeah, this ability, super strong, really, really powerful ability. And then finally, we've got 90 cost, Rapid Resupply. Grants resources depending on your rank. I think this means tier. I've tested this, and you appear to get 500 at tier 1, 1,000 at tier 2, and 1,500 at tier 3 in-game. It doesn't seem to have any impact on your rank or your general level, as far as I can tell. So I think it's supposed to say tier rather than rank. I don't know if maybe in-game they actually call that rank. I'm pretty sure it's your tier, but there you go. What this does is it reduces unit deployment time. It gives you the big boost of resources, reduces unit deployment time. This is the amount of time, the cooldown on units. This is a massive reduction, by the way. Like, it changes tanks from like 3 minutes to 7 seconds. It's incredibly massive boost. And it temporarily freezes resource income. I haven't run the numbers on whether or not this ends up making you money or losing you money. It freezes resources for a while, but it's not like an incredibly long time. I think in the mid and late game, which is when you're going to want to use this anyway, because you're at tier 2 and 3, you get more resources. Because of your pop cap and your upkeeps, you're probably going to be getting more resources than you're losing by quite a bit. So I think it's really good, actually. Also, the reduced unit deployment time means that you can just pump out tanks like crazy. You can hit this and just immediately make like 2 tanks in 10 seconds. Because you have the resources to make them, and the cooldown goes to nothing. So I actually think this ability is pretty powerful. You can also use this to like jumpstart your economy. Well, you can jumpstart your tiers is what I'm trying to say. Like, you're in tier 2, you hit this, you can immediately go to tier 3 because you get a boost of 1,000 resources. I actually think this ability is pretty great. But I haven't played a whole lot of it yet, so I'm not 100% sure. Alright, let's talk about the units. So we'll go from left to right here. So we've got the burner tank. This is a chemical tank, basically an anti-infantry tank. I have tried this thing. It's really good. I think this is really, really strong. It's super cheap at 300. It's reasonably fast, 6 speed. Obviously, it has no armor piercing and bad armor. Like, this thing is pretty vulnerable, and it doesn't kill enemy vehicles at all, but it melts infantry, and it does it in an area effect, which is super strong. Like, people have mortars stacked up, you can just melt them all. So yeah, I actually really like this unit. I think this unit's very, very good. We've got tank hunters. These are a tier 1 anti-vehicle infantry, which is unusual because normally the anti-vehicle infantry is in tier 2. These guys I'm not super impressed by. They are tier 1 and they are very cheap, but they do very little damage. I found that these things take a really long time to kill anything. So I'm not a big fan of these guys, but if you need anti-vehicle infantry, you do have access to them in tier 1 for Soviets or USSR, which is definitely unique. We've got the Betka high-speed tank. This guy, again, super cheap, very, very fast. Good armor piercing, 130 armor piercing is pretty good for a tier 2 unit. This is going to deal with light vehicles in the early game. I like this unit as well. I've tried it. Pretty good. Because of its low cost, and because of the combination with the general ability that reduces cooldowns, you can, if you're in a tank war, you can hit the general ability, you can pump out like 2 or 3 of these guys very, very quickly. Only 2 pop cap makes them incredibly strong. And you can just overwhelm the enemy with numbers, basically. I think that's like a pretty big theme of the USSR. You just make a lot more units than your opponent. So yeah, you can like take out a medium-sized tank by just making 2 or 3 of these and just swarming it. So yeah, I quite like that unit as well. We've got the Katusha. I don't think any World War II game would really be complete without the Katusha. Really one of a fan favorite of units. This thing is, again, very cheap. We look at 2 pop cap, 230 cost. It has surprisingly short range for an artillery piece at 60. This thing has to get quite close to fire, but it fires rapidly and it does decent damage. And it's so cheap. I can't state enough, the USSR units are very, very cheap. This thing I think is also really good. I've tried it out a little bit. It seems very, very strong. It doesn't have great armor piercing, but because it's indirect fire, the armor piercing hits the top armor of tanks, which is generally less than the listed armor value. So it's a little bit better versus vehicles than it looks. And it's very good, again, versus infantry. It's also really good versus structures. I've actually used this against the HQ a couple of times, and it melts the HQ if you can get it in range. It is very, very vulnerable, though. It doesn't have good armor, it doesn't have good hit points. This is definitely a fire and retreat unit, because it has to get pretty close to fire. Anything that drives up to this is going to take it out pretty quickly. But I think it's pretty strong, and again, cost. USSR units so cheap, it doesn't matter that much if you lose them a lot of the time. Next, we're going to look at the flamethrower. This is the standard flamethrower variant for the faction. This one is the lightest of the flamethrowers. It's the cheapest, lowest hit points, lowest armor. Has 15 armor. I actually don't know if that's the lowest, but it's the cheapest and the weakest of the flamethrower sections. It also has the shortest range. 9 range is comically low. This thing has to be basically melee to hit anything, but it's a flamethrower. It does good damage to infantry. It's still a strong anti-infantry unit, and I've noticed that this infantry explodes when it dies. I don't know if that's going to happen to the other flamethrower squads. I tested out USA flamethrower and it still doesn't explode. The Soviet one does. When this dies, it explodes and it will damage nearby units. So once again, really sticking with the theme of USSR, you've got cheaper units that are expendable. Like, you actively can suicide this guy into an enemy infantry and just trade him off for something that costs more, because when he dies, he explodes and does additional damage. I think that guy's pretty good. With his cost and how good he is versus infantry, I like the Soviet flamethrower quite a lot. Alright, now let's talk about the engineer. So the engineers for Soviets are very weird. They have Molotov cocktails instead of rifles or submachine guns like their counterparts. They have really high armor piercing, weirdly. So they're actually surprisingly good versus light vehicles, but they are still not a combat unit, really. They are all the engineers got buffs in this patch. They're better in combat now. They can beat like riflemen, but for their cost, they're not great in combat. Their main job is still to repair things. But yeah, they're decent. They're okay. I don't think they're amazing, but then no engineer is amazing. They repair things. That's what they do. So they're good at doing that. All right, up next, let's look at the PTSU. This is a self-propelled gun. This is an anti-tank gun, basically. This is the Soviet equivalent to the Stug. This thing has a lot of hit points, and it has a lot of armor piercing. 230 is massive amounts of armor piercing for a tier 2 vehicle. This thing's going to do basically maximum damage to all targets. It doesn't fire as rapidly as something like a Wolverine. It's only 15 shots per minute. Wolverine is 20, and its damage is not amazing. But again, it's one of the cheaper options. And it's solid workhorse unit. It's got decent armor, it's great armor piercing. This thing will always do good damage to pretty much everything. So it's a pretty solid unit, but I'm not super excited by it. Up next we have the Tractor. Now this one's a bit of a meme, I think. I don't really understand what's up with this unit at all. This is like a tier 1 anti-tank unit. I don't know why you'd need this ever in tier 1. It has okay damage. It has 120 armor piercing, which is quite high. I've not really seen this do much in games yet. I don't really... It's not... Like, you don't want to make it to fight infantry. It's really bad versus infantry. I haven't tried it enough as a spam unit against armor to say if it's good or not. But it's definitely silly. It's definitely a silly unit. I think it's a bit of a meme, personally. But, you know, your mileage may vary. Up next, we've got the T-34. Once again, of course, the most famous USSR tank, the T-34. This is a solid workhorse of the USSR army. It's quite expensive. 750 is very, very high for a USSR unit, and its stats aren't phenomenal, but it's a solid all-rounder unit. You can use it to kill infantry, you can use it to kill vehicles. It's got decent hit points, decent damage. It's a solid unit, and again, it's something you can pump out with that general ability. You can make like a couple of T-34s really quickly with that 1,000 resource boost. Yeah, T-34 is pretty good, but I've not been super impressed with it like I have with some of the other Soviet units. Up next is the Reds. This is the Red Army Soldiers. This is basically just the Rifleman Squad for USSR. Very similar to the other Rifleman Squads. It's cheap, low cooldown, not very good in combat. Its job is basically to allow you to put out a ton of units quickly. I think this combos quite well with what USSR is doing, because when your units die, you get 5 commander power, and you can convert that commander power into resources with the final ability of the Soviet commander. So basically, I think what you're supposed to do with these is make a lot of them and never retreat them. It even says it in the description, yield not a single inch. I think you just don't retreat these, you don't try and keep them alive. You just spam them forwards to hold points against your opponent, and you convert them into commander power points, which you then convert into resources later on, which gives you a big boost. So I actually think that's the way to play Red Army Soldiers, and I've done that a couple of times. It's been pretty effective. So yeah, I think they're the best of the Riflemen because they combo best with the General. USA and Germany don't really have a lot going on with their Riflemen. They're just kind of bad. But I think the USSR Riflemen can be really strong because they fit with the theme of the man spam strategy. All right, now we've got the KV-2 heavy tank. This is currently the only tier 3 unit for USSR. And this thing is actually a beast. Like, I've tried it, it's really good. It's very expensive at 1600. This is it's very expensive. I mean, this is like Tiger Tank cost level. But I also think it's kind of like Tiger Tank power level. This thing is good versus everything. It's got 210 armor piercing, 200 armor. It's good against infantry because it has good accuracy and good AoE. And it's good versus vehicles. It's just a solid, it's basically like a Tiger Tank, but for USSR. It's just good versus everything. And it's a good late game punch. Then we've got the mortar. I'm not sure why it's organizing my units like this, but there you go. So the USSR mortar is the deviation from USSR standard. This is not the cheapest mortar, and it is not expendable. This is very, very heavy mortar. It has half the attack speed and about twice the damage of the German mortar, which is heavier than the USA mortar. This thing hits so hard. It honestly, like, you can 1 or 2 shot rifle squads. It does a ton of damage, but it fires very slowly and it moves incredibly slowly. I'm not sure if this is the best mortar at the moment, but it definitely could be. It's a really, really good unit. Like, mortars are really good in this game, and this might be the best mortar, just because it hits so hard. Like, if you aren't moving around and dodging this mortar shell, your infantry gets annihilated. So yeah, I think this mortar is really good. And then finally, we have the heavy infantry for USSR. This is a tier 2 heavy machine gun infantry. I have not managed to unlock this one. As you can see, I'm almost out of tokens. I've basically spent all my tokens trying to unlock USSR units so I can try them out. This is the only one I've failed to unlock, so I have no idea how good it is. But it's a tier 2 armored infantry. It has 40 armor, which is a lot more than most infantry. That means that 0 armor piercing infantry enemy, which is a lot of them, they're only going to do about 60% damage to this thing. And it's got 315 shots per minute with about 12 damage. I suspect this thing is pretty good, but I haven't been able to test it, so I don't know. Okay, so the balance changes is the final change we've got for version 1.0. There's been a few balance changes. I don't think the full list has actually been released yet. The update has just come out. But the main ones are, we've got Bazooka Rangers have received a buff. So these guys here, they are now buffed. They have better penetration, 155 armor piercing now. Better damage, they've gone from 65 base to 80. And their reload speed is slightly slower. But they've got a buff overall. Flamethrowers have been changed. Flamethrower squads, I think, now have triple flamethrower. Actually, maybe not. I'm not entirely sure how flamethrowers have been changed. They've been listed as one unit now deals 12 damage and the whole squad now does 36. I'm not sure what that means exactly. Maybe the backup guys are now better and it's not just all about the guy with the flamethrower. The same has been done to the German flamethrower squad. Engineers got a massive boost to their damage. Engineers are now much better in combat, but I haven't been able to test them enough yet. But they got a big boost in damage. The Jaeger got a much needed nerf. This was the most powerful infantry in the game, not close. It got a big range reduction. It's now the same range as Rifleman. and it also reduced the dodge chance, which is not listed on this screen, but it means they're going to die easier, basically. And they got a small damage nerf, so Jaegers have been nerfed very slightly. Now, there's been a few other changes I don't think are necessarily listed. The Stug is now showing lower damage and armor piercing than it used to, so I think the Stug also got a nerf, but that is not listed in the patch notes yet. So there may be other changes that I do not know about yet. Alright, so that is all the main updates for 1.0. You should definitely download this game. Like, this game is great. I've been really enjoying it. You should for sure give this game a go. Yeah, like, not much else to say. I think this game is fantastic. You should definitely try it. And as a little treat, I'm going to give you guys some USSR gameplay now. So, yeah, I've got a game of USSR I recorded earlier, and we're going to be taking a look at that so you can see the USSR units in action. So, as USSR, I start with an engineer. That's my cheapest unit. I do my standard opening of mortar immediately to follow up my engineer. I send the engineer straight to the crate, and I send my flamer over to this crate. And I get my mortar to back up the engineer on the right, because he has enough range to capture the back point whilst also supporting combat on the right. Alright, so now we're going to wait and see what our opponent does. I'm not going to make a second engineer. Even though the USSR engineer is decent in combat, I think I'd like to wait and get a flamethrower instead. And we're going to get this flamethrower, and we're going to send him to the right to help out over here. Although it looks like we've got a jeep on the left. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to turn my flamer around and my mortar. And we're going to start heading over to the left-hand side, where there's a jeep trying to control that point. Currently my flamer's doing okay 1v1. Our opponent's microing the jeep back. It's a good play. Jeep can retreat whilst firing. Flamer has a bad time trying to chase it. So yeah, it's a good play from our opponent. We're going to wait until we can get another mortar as our next unit. And we're going to have that capture this back point. Then our engineer's going to come over here and capture this. We don't really, we don't need to fight this jeep. It's not a huge deal. The second flamer will come in. And we'll use that to take this crate. We'll treat this guy before he dies. One of the mortars will stay here and cap, the other one will move up and try and support the fight against the jeep. So the thing about the jeep is it is quite a powerful combat unit. It's got good range in the early game. And it is a capture unit, but it does not have... It costs 2 pop cap is the main problem. So our opponent is just lower on units than us. He can only make 4 units total, while we can make 5 because he's invested 2 pop cap in his jeep. Alright, so we've got our mortar now supporting the jeep. Second mortar can start moving up. We're going to start upgrading observation posts. I think observation posts are pretty good. If you get them early, they're definitely going to make the money back because they cost about they cost 150. They give you +1 a second income. So after 2.5 minutes, you get your money back. Alright, we'll run this away and we'll set up our mortars like this. If the jeep wants to stand still and shoot at all, it's going to get mortared. We're not going to chase him with the flamers though. Alright, so this thing's going to die pretty quickly. USSR mortar does a ton of damage. It'll die if it gets a direct hit. Yep, there we go. Jeep down. Very nice. And we'll start moving our mortars across. USSR mortar super slow, so you need to get them into position early. Enemy flamer. We're going to use our flamers and mortars to try and take care of that. And we're really looking for... We're going to try and save up for tier 2 now. Going to try not to lose any more units. Well, not lose any units, sorry, and just try not to make any new units, is what I meant to say. Let's get our healthy flamer to go after the mortar. Our mortars will take care of the entrenched flamer. USSR mortar does crazy good damage, so it's really good at clearing out buildings. Also, the USSR engineer has good armor piercing, so he does a good job against building units in buildings as well. Alright, so the flamer's almost dealt with. Oh, gotta be careful not to get flamed. USSR engineer, because of his high armor piercing, also is good versus observation posts. I'm not going to be able to get in there because the jeep is protecting it too much. We did lose a flamer there, got a little bit too greedy, keeping him around a little bit too long. Oops, I did not mean to click that. I just accidentally double-clicked my commander power when I was trying to move my unit across. Alright, so now we've got tier 2. The first one we're going to make, I think, is a burner tank. This thing's real good versus infantry, and because our opponent only has tier 1 units at the moment, this should basically kill everything he has. I think it'll probably smash a Jeep as well. Jeeps don't really have much armor. Let's try and get our mortar to run away from this this Jeep. So USSR has a lot of really low pop cap, cheap tier 2 vehicles that are excellent. I think both the, I think all three of these, the Katusha, the Betka, and the Burner, are all really good. I'm gonna get a Katusha as well. I have the Burner drive over here. Flamer's gonna crush this rifleman. We'll go capture this VP.
I will do or die trying. Left lever, right lever.
The Burner tank should deal with this Jeep really quickly. Yeah, oh my god, it just melts it completely. Then we can go push his observation posts, because the Burner tank is obviously good versus buildings as well. This guy's going to roll up here. We're going to get the Katusha to back it up. I'll try and, I mean, like, look at this thing. It's just an absolute monster. Just absolutely murdered that mortar. And it can fire while moving, so yeah. I think this tank is actually kind of OP. It's really strong. That's the Katusha firing. That's what it looks like when it fires. I'll try and get an enemy infantry or something to shoot with the Katusha so I can show it off properly.
I will do or die trying.
Direct strike doesn't really do much to the Burner tank. As you can see, we have pretty dominant control of the map now. The ability to pump out a bunch of cheap, powerful vehicles as soon as you hit tier 2 is one of the things that makes USSR very strong, I think. Here's a Greyhound. Even the Greyhound is losing to the Burner tank because the Greyhound doesn't have much armor. We're gonna try and get the Katusha, show off the Katusha against this Jeep. Probably not gonna hit too much because it's moving. Yeah, sadly. And we also had used a lot of our missiles on the... It looks like you have to fully empty the missiles of the Katusha before it'll start reloading. Gonna try and dodge our opponent's 100 cost commander power. We do manage to get out of there. And we'll repair with our engineer. Get a light tank. Yeah, it looks like you need to fire all of the rockets of the Katusha before it'll start reloading. So important to make sure you get the full volley off. We'll fire it off at this Jeep. As you can see, it's quite short range for an artillery piece, but it's good damage. Good damage, it fires a lot of rockets as well. Here's the Betka, which is the light tank. This is not anti-infantry, but it's surprisingly good versus vehicles for its low cost. We're going to Katusha this mortar, I think, or maybe some riflemen. Yeah, I mean, look at that. It's really good versus infantry. Super strong anti-infantry unit. Get the Betka to go over and take out the try and take out the building that's garrisoned. Bring these units back up. There's a Sherman. Oh, retreat, Katusha, retreat. Right, so now we're going to get to see the Betka in action against a tank. Bear in mind this thing is cheap. It costs 302 pop cap. So the Sherman is like 700 and something and 3 pop cap. So you don't expect it to 1v1 the Sherman, although it might do. You can see it's pretty impressive, honestly, for its cost against a Sherman that costs a lot more than it. It does have a pretty long cooldown, but that is dealt with by the commander power. This 90 cost commander power. So 1v1 it doesn't do a great job. It does okay, but not fantastic. But bear in mind it is very cheap. So you really don't want to be 1v1ing with this unit anyway. We're going to try and fix this up, and we're going to hit our commander power. We're going to build another Betka. We're actually going to build 2 more, because this is something I really like about USSR. You can hit your commander power. You get a 7-second cooldown on your tank. It only costs 2 pop cap. You get like a bunch of resources to build them. And suddenly you can do this massive swarm strategy where you just send in a bunch of tanks against the enemy's single tank. So we're going to send 3 of these against his 1 Sherman. And bear in mind, these cost 900 combined, so the price of these 3 is about the same as the Sherman. And by bypassing the cooldown with our commander power, we're able to suddenly have a ton of them on the field at once. Out of the way of that direct strike. So we just absolutely swarm our opponent's Sherman with Betkas. If we had the commander points, we could also use the units become indestructible here. So here goes the Sherman. We basically traded the Sherman for 1 Betka. And we're going to take out this Hound as well. Base. We'll bring that up. Capture this command point. We'll bring our mortar over to help out with this. We now have a Vet 2 Betka. Opponent's forced to retreat his mortars with the incoming tanks. Let's bring the tanks over here to get healed up. Have our mortar capture this. Even if we were to lose all of our tanks, we have enough money to immediately rebuild a bunch of them. This ability obviously has a long cooldown. It's a very powerful ability. But when this comes off cooldown, we're able to just spam vehicles. And we have a ton of money now. Just absolutely boatloads. So I'm gonna actually delete a unit so that we can get one of these. I can show this off. This is the KV-2. This is the USSR heavy tank. It's the equivalent to the Tiger for Germany. This thing is actually really good, in my opinion. It beats basically everything, apart from enemy heavy tanks. It's got good anti-infantry, good anti-vehicle. It's very expensive, especially for a USSR unit. 1600 is extremely high. But when you beat everything, you can't really complain. It looks like we actually might win before we get this thing into combat, sadly. Well, I'll show another Katyusha volley before we win. It looks like we fired while moving there. I think, can the Katyusha fire while moving? That would be kind of OP. It looks like it kind of can. It's weird. You can see the Katyusha also does really good building damage. So if you ever get a Katyusha onto your opponent's HQ, you will win very quickly. Alright, we've got 3 VPs left. Looks like we're going to take this one. And there it is. A solid victory for USSR. I actually think the USSR faction is incredibly strong. These light vehicles that cost so little money and so little hot cap, they just seem extremely strong to me. There you see, we built way less units than our opponent actually, and collected less supply overall, because obviously we were winning the game most of the time, so we had more upkeep. But we killed a lot more than they did, and we destroyed a lot more. Similar buildings. Oh, sorry, destroyed a lot more buildings as well. Alright, so there you go, guys. There's some USSR gameplay. I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, I think you guys should definitely try this game out. It's a really, really strong game. Big fan. And I'm now a Lieutenant Colonel. Feels good, man. Alright, hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time.